That was kind of one of the news stories that I've got up. It's about bears. It's about a bear. A bear had to be euthanized. It was interesting the way they covered it because they actually talked to a bear like sanctuary that was like very upfront about it, and it's like, yep, this is what happens when bears get habituated to humans, and it's unfortunate that it does happen sometimes. And I was like, oh, I was actually really impressed that they covered that way because I figured the story is. I'm gonna click into it now. Yeah, community angered after officials euthanize bear. Um, and it's, we didn't want it killed. And it's like, okay, so the problem is that, like, you allowed it to continue interacting with humans, and that's why it was euthanized. You didn't move it early enough. So it had attacked 2 humans and was guarding its little baby bears and was, like, staying underneath somebody's house. So, unfortunately, it was too habituated to humans, and even if you moved it deeper into the Angeles National Forest, it was going to still interact with humans in a way that was going to be dangerous for the bear and for the humans. But I was actually really interested in the fact that, like, they had this interview with somebody from the American Bear Foundation, talking about, like, whether or not these kinds of encounters are common and, like, what the results are of it, and, how to approach this and what happens to the cubs. And this was the thing that was really interesting was, how emotional are these kinds of situations for you? Condelis, I don't love it. Our organization hates seeing bears get lethally removed because they're in conflict with humans. A lot of what we do is try to prevent that through conflict mitigation projects. All we want to see are more bears on the landscape for everyone to enjoy, and that includes hunters and hunting, but also people who just like seeing bears. It's pretty emotional. It gets depressing every time you hear of a situation like this with a perfectly good bear protecting her cubs. It's sad for the human involved. She got scratched up a little bit, but it's part of what we have to accept as humans living on the landscape. It's never easy, but it's part of the game of us being here. And, like, the framing on that may be, like, a little bit off, but, like, I did actually like the fact that they bothered to cover that, because frequently in these kinds of stories, it's just a very reactionary, like, oh, the poor bear was killed by the evil forest officials, and it's like, well, yeah, because you were feeding it pretzels. Like, but yeah. What the fuck? Shit that just came across my dash. Apparently a trans woman dressed up like a blues brother just murdered a millionaire developer in LA. Oh, shit. That was the Hermosa Beach thing. So the deal is, I mean, this has been coming up on the local news. There was a, like, multi-hour standoff in Hermosa Beach a couple days ago that, like, shut down parts of the beach and the boardwalk and everything like that. And after the standoff, where I believe the person who was the aggressor lived, there was the body of, like, a 92-year-old man found in the house where the standoff had been. So I guess we're going to read a news story. New details have emerged in a bizarre homicide investigation involving a non-binary suspect and a 92-year-old victim who was discovered after a 7-hour standoff inside his Hermosa Beach residence this weekend. The March 14th incident occurred just after 12:30 p.m. on the 500 block of the Strand, near the intersection of 6th Street and Beach Drive, according to Huntington Beach Police Department. The police officials told KTLA that officers initially responded to the residence for a welfare check after tenants at the property reported a foul odor coming from the home, and a landlord who had been unable to reach the resident. Officers discovered a suspect, later identified by 2 names, 39-year-old Robert Philip Simmons and Eleanor Bolio, who reportedly barricaded themselves inside the residence, prompting a response from the police department SWAT team and crisis negotiators. The subject made statements about being armed and dangerous and then barricaded themselves inside the residence, Hermosa Beach PD said. Due to the circumstances, SWAT resources made up of the Hermosa Beach PD and nearby allied agencies responded to the location. Dozens of the residents were forced to evacuate the area during the hours-long barricade, which eventually led to the surrender of Bolio, who emerged from the residence wearing a dark suit, white shirt, dark tie, sunglasses, along with her hair pulled back in a bun tucked under a fedora. Who did we say they were dressed by? As a blues brother. I heard Michael Jackson was the description of how they were dressed. Demetrius Dokolos, a prominent real estate developer was discovered dead inside the home after police were finally able to execute a search warrant. The case has been taken over by the LA County Sheriff's Department Homicide Bureau, who told the Los Angeles Times that they are still in the early stages of the investigation and working to determine how Simmons, who was identified in court filings as non-binary, and the victim may have known each other. It's also unclear whether DeColos was just when DeColos was allegedly killed, with investigators trying to determine how long he may have been dead inside the beachfront home. Prosecutors in the LA County District Attorney's Office charged Simmons Bolio with one count of murder on Tuesday, with the writing in the indictment that they believe the 92-year-old was killed sometime between March 7th and March 14th, the Times reported. Jail records show that Bolio was arrested in Redondo Beach on February 23rd for alleged petty theft and later released with a citation. Just weeks before that, on February 5th, Bolio was arrested in LA and released the following day when charges were dismissed. Neil Hibaria, a realtor whose company manages the building where DeColos lived, said he knew the 92-year-old professionally, having sold DeColos' previous home and helping him find the beachfront home where he lived, the Daily Breeze reported. According to Hibaria, DeColos built quality homes in Hermosa Beach and made significant contributions to the local economy through his work. He described him as put together, orderly, and proud of his Greek heritage. Bolio is currently being held on $2 million bail. Bureau Crime Stoppers hotline. Let's see. Yeah. So because this is something that's been reported on for a few days, that was like a weird story when it was like emerging about the when the story was first reported, because of the standoff, because it was like being reported as like, hey, this is a live and ongoing thing. So, but yeah, let me see. Yeah, the narratives of trans violence are definitely, I mean, yeah, it's very, just because you said developer in LA County, that was the thing that made it click for me, because yeah, that was it has been an emerging story here, and this is the first time I've heard anything about the identity of the suspect. So NY Post definitely is a suspicious entity when it comes to talking about how about the trans violence and things like that. But yeah, it's also really weird looking at things from place to place. The New York Post is obviously a reactionary rag that's a piece of shit, and like kind of always has been. It has been interesting to see the way that like local reporting in Los Angeles has changed on stories where like trans violence is a part of the story. You know, I used to pull Bilo as the suspect's name because I suspect that there's something going on with dead naming there. But you know, it had been reported with the previous name, and that was something where it was like somebody who's exactly my age in Southern California, and I'm like, sometimes I look at the news simply to say like, do I know them? Which I don't know. But the reporting on this has been a little bit sensational within California, so that might be really interesting to compare like how the local reporting varies compared to like, yeah, the New York Post or the Washington Post at this point, or Newsweek, because they're probably going to cover it and it's probably going to be real fucking annoying. But like it's interesting because like one of the things that actually gets covered a fair amount in Southern California is violence against trans people. Like pretty significantly. Like there were a couple of really big stories last year about a trans woman being attacked for being trans. So like they actually do reporting on hate crimes against trans people as well. So I might be in an information environment that doesn't display the same amount of bias as a lot of others, but there has been a ton of emphasis on, I mean, the right wing is currently pushing the narrative that essentially all shooters are trans, all mass shooters are trans, because it's something that they could land on that takes the question off of whether or not, you know, we need to better regulate firearms ownership. So, but yeah, at least in some places, it's not covered quite so catastrophically, which is good to know. And I'll have to, yeah, there are also, of course, trans outlets and trans coverage that handle this a lot better. But yeah, no, they've been going so fucking hardcore on the what do they call it? Because it's like they did the same thing with Tyler Robinson and Charlie Kirk. They're still pushing really hard on the fact that Tyler Robinson's roommate, possibly partner, is trans, and so brainwashed by the trans cult to go start murdering people because transness is violence. And then there have been a couple of mass shootings recently where the internet's a really depressing place, and there are like really depressing forums where people get radicalized into going and committing mass murders because we live in sort of a depressing world. And there have definitely been a few where it's like, it's possible that the shooter was trans, it's possible that the shooter was not, but it's become a meme. So like the 4th of July shooting in Chicago a couple of years ago, where the shooter was doing the schizo posting thing, and used a disguise as a woman to like evade police for a while or do more shooting or something like that. That was pushed very hard as a shooter was trans narrative. The Uvalde shooting, where they initially misidentified the shooter as a trans woman, they still push on that, still call the Uvalde shooter trans. It's fucked. Yeah, I also like it's something that I do kind of want to talk about because it is a problem, but it's also something that I'm like, I don't know how much people need to hear about this because it's just a form of misinformation. I guess, I don't know. Basically, the deal is within the last 5 years, there have been maybe like 3 to 5 mass shootings, maybe a little more now, but 3 to 5 mass shootings where somebody who was involved was trans. There was the Arkansas Christian School. There was the bar in Colorado where the shooter claimed to be non-binary, and that was like the first time anybody had ever heard that they were non-binary. There was also recently the whole thing with the Zizian cult. And like, so there have been a few things where there have been trans shooters involved or trans aggressors involved. However, this, like talking about other crime statistics, is something where it's like, this is, the deal is we're just now hearing reporting about this, and we're not comparing it to the number of cis shooters. There are so many times more cis shooters. But it's nuts. So yeah, it is definitely exhausting. And Northern California, like definitely there are parts of it where like there's good reporting on like trans and queer issues and everything. It depends on even like, the reporting on stuff. If I were in West Hollywood and looking at like West Hollywood locals, which I mean, KTLA shows up in either. Like I'm on the eastern edge of Los Angeles County, so I'm still in LA County, but I'm almost in the IE, which is a lot more conservative, and I happen to live in a very conservative suburb. Not as bad as Orange County. It's not as bad as Orange County, thank fuck. Yeah, places where it's a more significant part of the population and that have a bigger investment. I will say, like, KTLA's been great on reporting about like ICE stuff. They were, it's hard to tell when stuff has been getting pulled for things. Like they had a story a while back about a group that was specifically working with local business owners. They were building on the Minnesota model, on the Minneapolis model. Instead of using whistles, they were putting a connected intercom, like radio loudspeaker system on businesses where specifically they had worked with the business owners to say, hey, can we put this on your building so that if ICE shows up and is causing a problem or something like that, that we can start sounding the alarm from your building, and if they move on, we can go to the next building. And they did it on private property so that people couldn't take it down. It was actually really, really smart. It was, and the local news reported on that, but then they took the story down, but then it went back up. And so it's like, okay, like there's definitely, you can see some pressures there. At some point, I should probably just pay for a subscription to the LA Times and see what like the local paper of record is covering. But the LA Times sometimes makes me fucking insane. So I should see if my local library covers a subscription to the LA Times or, library access through the website. So, yeah, let's see. It really does. 2 towns over, it would be a lot more conservative than this town. Um, uh, you're near Sacramento. It's a mixed bag. Yeah, well, and I mean, like, you're close to Shasta up there. Like, Shasta's really conservative in a lot of ways and has a ton of conspiratorial shit. Redding can be really fucking conservative. Like, there is a lot of farm town up there also. I do like that. No way to prevent this says only nation where this regularly happens. Though I will argue with that a little. There are definitely places where similar stuff is happening more. So I would say if you can't get a local paper, or if you particularly hate your local paper, which my local paper here, no, fuck them. I'm not giving anybody money for that. But LA Times, maybe. Is even if it's like Sinclair Media, reading the local TV news site can get you kind of an interesting perspective, and is almost certainly going to have more actual news than the broadcast version of anything local. Broadcast news has value. I understand that people use it and appreciate it. I have unending permanent beef with broadcast news because I think that it really, really oversimplifies things and really prioritizes things that are not what people should be looking at. I think it's kind of like core and central to the whole, you know, the reason that the title of this account is "If It Bleeds, It Leads" is because of how TV news handles things. There's that Calvin and Hobbes comic about the dad standing far back against the wall watching the news because it's like a close-up of somebody's extreme grief, and it's like, yeah, that's the way that it is. Yeah, no, it's yeah, NPR. I do also want to regularly shake everybody involved at NPR, and I get really fucking annoyed. Potato Shoes is saying, like, NPR. So much of it is like, okay, it's a transcript of an interview. Like, this could be an article, man. So, local papers, because local papers will frequently, like, a local NPR affiliate, like, I do have beef permanently with broadcast news, but local papers and local things like that, because even in, like, the shittiest backwater, you usually had one person who, like, went to school for journalism because they were mad about something. It's specifically for the way that reporters function that I recommend the local reporting, and specifically for the way that, like you have to be a particular kind of maniac to be on the city council beat. And that's usually the kind of maniac who's going to give you some pretty decent information. That's a little less true. It's less true in bigger cities like Los Angeles because the city council is, like, such a fucking beast. But, like, I have known the city council beat reporters in the towns that I've worked for and on the smaller papers that I've worked for. And it's like, yep, that's somebody who has a righteous cause, and that righteous cause is yelling at people who need to be yelled at. So, let's see, Spiraling, you're saying that editing classes under a journalist in college actually made you mad enough to abandon that whole line of thought. Again, I had to stop being a journalist because of the way that journalism works. People don't actually read things. People are really easy. I keep thinking about making a project intentionally to manipulate people. The problem is I know that if I do it, there are people who are going to believe it who will never be convinced that it was a prank or fake or something like that. Like, there's a part of me that really does want to set up something where it's like, yeah, this is an intentional misinformation site to teach you like how this looks and what it works like. But I would want to do it well, and I would want it to be convincing. And you don't even have to be convincing to convince people. The fucking Wayfair conspiracy was not convincing, but there were tons of people who were convinced by it. And I do agree that it is good that Tumblr has mostly long form text, but man, the Wayfair thing circulated on Tumblr, and that one of the big things that I got fucking mad about during 2020 was there were people. Okay, so I listen to controversial streamer Hasan Piker a fair amount, and I know that Hasan is controversial and everything like that. I think that he has a lot of really good perspectives, specifically when it comes to media analysis. One of the things that happened on his stream today was that Zoran Mandami's wife has been, identified as racist because she liked some tweets about revolution in Palestine, and also when she was 15 years old, 13 years ago, used the N-word on Twitter. This is something that is being reported specifically by somebody who does kind of like hit pieces against pro-Palestinian people. And it's fucked. It's absolutely fucked. And it was really interesting watching what was happening in Hasan's chat, because there were a ton of people who were like, oh, so you're saying it's okay to say the N-word? Oh, so, but you're not listening to Black voices. You're not doing this, that, and the other thing. One of the things that is really, really easily weaponized on Tumblr is like our social justice attitude. It happens all the fucking time. It derails and like absolutely stalls out conversations. And it's exactly how all of those Black to the Bones, LA Gone Girl, all of those blogs got traction. And it was also, I still see, there are blogs that I haven't named when talking about this, and I still see posts that are incorrect, that I know are incorrect, that are social justice posts specifically aimed at like the historical marginalization of Black people that circulate that do have reactionary attitudes in them. Yeah, it's it's kind of a nightmare. Yeah, the Wayfair conspiracy was nuts. Let's see. Yeah, sometimes the news, who was it? They were, I'm trying to remember, this is something, it was, there's something very badly broken in my brain. I listen to the podcast Knowledge Fight, and that is a podcast specifically criticizing Alex Jones and the InfoWars ecosystem. And there are 17 episodes about the various like depositions that Alex Jones and the Info Warriors participated in that are like, in some cases, 4 hours long episodes about court records. I have listened to those 17 episodes probably conservatively 50 times each. And in one of the episodes, there's specifically one of the lawyers is asking a question: is it more important to be right, or is it more important to be first? And the InfoWars reporter says, well, they're both important. And it's like, obviously the news broadcast should say, if you're talking about the news, it's like, no, it's more important to be right. You should pause and you should wait to be right. And this was specifically about, I think it was about the person who was misidentified as the Parkland shooter, who was like a socialist from Massachusetts who was misidentified and who unfortunately died like during the course of the trial. And it was about the fact that they had been misidentified as the Parkland shooter and had gotten harassed and had massive issues as a result of it. And yeah, that's like, the problem is that most people have the attitude of scooping somebody is more important than being correct. Getting the story out first is more important, even if it means, if you've got the story and somebody else has the story and you're following up on details, but they're about to drop it, you drop it first. And it sucks. It sucks. And it's because it gets clicks. Yeah. And I don't, the Lead Safe Mama. Yeah, Lead Safe Mama makes me, again, I like my therapist. She's a relatively new to me therapist, and she's into some woo-woo shit that I'm trying to be like, no, you don't need to do it. And I have not brought up anything that I'm like, you can't fucking do that. But like specifically, I was talking about turmeric yesterday, and the fact that like what people want out of turmeric as a supplement is like this particular compound that is simply not bioavailable. So I was talking about that, and she was like, oh, so the turmeric supplements I've been taking are completely useless. And I'm like, I mean, if you're taking them, yes, and also there's actually a pretty significant lead risk because that is one of the ones that has a bigger issue with heavy metal contamination if you're talking about globally and everything like that. She's like, oh, but like, what if you take it with like coconut oil? That's supposed to do it. I'm like, no, no. It's like the difference between an in vitro and an in vivo study. This is an in vivo study. It is not bioavailable no matter what you mix it with. That's not how nutrition works. So it's uh is the it does about lead contamination. Oh my god, yeah. Um I am so sorry. This must be such a miserable environment to be a drug development scientist. I'm so sorry. Man, and it's such a terrible information environment because people are, again, all you have to do is present something convincingly. All you have to do is put it in such a way that people are like, that does kind of make sense. And sometimes in a one-on-one conversation, dude, at one point my CEO said that like ivermectin was exactly the same as getting a fucking COVID vaccine. And I was like, I can't say anything to this. So I just changed the subject. Your ginger turmeric tea is probably fine. The people who have these issues are people who are taking very significant doses of them regularly, either because they're adding it as a part of their diet. The people who have primarily seen this issue are people who are either taking supplements with a huge amount of it in the supplement, or children and families that culturally use a lot of turmeric and are more vulnerable to it because of their body size and the fact that it's a daily component of their diet. Your ginger turmeric tea is probably fine. What was it? Oh, so the funny thing, no, that was not Gary. That was the new CEO. That's the one who I have to work with a little more going forward. Yeah. Yeah. He has also specifically said to me, like a couple of times as a joke, he's like, it's like people say, true socialism has never been tried. It's just accidentally killed 50 million people. And I'm like, you do not want me talking to you about the number of people that capitalism has killed in the United States every year simply through having to pay for fucking healthcare, because it's 70,000 people every year. And I've got the statistics to back that up and prove it, but you don't fucking want to hear that. You also don't want to fucking hear the fact that layoffs actually lose companies money, but that's a different fucking story. Yeah, it's, that was part of why I do actually like the CEO. And part of why I think he likes me is like in our very first conversation, he sat down and he said, have you heard of Jack Welch? And I'm like, Jack Welch, you mean the business guy who started the entire thing with like layoffs in order to like increase shareholder value by firing people? And he's like, yeah, Neutron Jack. And I'm like, yeah, that's why my mom got fired in 1997. I just like stared straight at him and he's like, well, it changed how business was done. I'm like, yeah, it changed how my household was run too. And we sort of left it at that. But at the same time, it's one of those things where it's like, he knows I'm willing to say things like that to him. And like, sometimes I'm willing to say things like that to him. I'm not willing to do that about ivermectin because I fucking know better than to get in those kinds of arguments with somebody in that position. Yeah, ivermectin is actually rad. And I'm trying to remember, like, I know I've got some in the house for puzzles, but I think I recently had an argument with my mother-in-law because her dog he had worms, so he needed a drug for having gut parasites. And she was like asking about why are they giving him ivermectin for this? Is it COVID? I'm like, no, that's the reverse of what happened here. Let me talk to you about this drug. Let me talk to you about how it works and the history of it and let's not go there. It's okay. It's not scary to give your fucking dog ivermectin. That's actually one of the appropriate uses for it. So, sinister, isn't that Latin for left? Yeah, the Earl Grey tea poisoning, is that because of the bergamot, or is that because of the fluoride in the tea? Because you can also poison yourself with fluoride with black tea. So, okay, cool. Hooray! I'm glad that I was correct about Sinister. Um, that was a that's a thing that I know because of Dune, which is nerdy. Um, yeah, the guy with the black. Okay, when the guy got poisoned by the black tea with the fluoride by drinking 2 gallons of it a day, large bastard was also drinking 2 gallons of black tea a day at that point. So we had to really reassess his black tea consumption. And I think the only reason he didn't get poisoning from it was because he's 7 fucking feet tall. So, and he drank lots of water in addition to the tea. Delivering pizza is definitely one where you can make arguments with your customers and not have too much of an issue. It is an overconsumption issue with the fluoride poisoning. It's fluoridosis, so like fluoride poisoning is a little bit of an overstatement, but like it can cause issues with like brittleness and things like that. But yeah, the multiple pints of Earl Grey tea. I think Potato Shoe says it was the bergamot, which is the it's a type of citrus oil, but it's like concentrated. Like that can also look, the poison is in the dose. That's true of everything. So over consuming anything, like there was a kid, I want to say not too long ago, but at this point it was like 15 years ago probably, who like died from overusing spray on deodorant. Like, as long as you're you gotta be a little careful. So but yeah, no, the dosage, it's very funny dealing with dosages with large bastard. That they're definitely, when they were giving him propofol after his quad bypass, they like never hit on the right amount. So like the doctors would come over and like try to talk to me about things, and like even though he was intubated, he was like listening to them and like waving at them, and they were like, whoa, is he okay? And I'm like, yeah. So that's why I made him a letterboard, so he could actually like respond to things, because he was intubated, so he couldn't talk, but he wasn't that stressed out because he had enough propofol in his system that he was just like, yeah, I'm awake, but I'm chilling. So yeah, no, he's also frequently awake when they do the biopsies. So they'll put the thing down his throat and go get a little sample of heart tissue. Yeah, it's it's crazy. That was also one of the situations where I was like, man, it is fucking crazy to me that we don't learn sign language, because you never realize how loud a hospital room is until you are like sitting next to somebody trying to listen to a doctor over the sound of like all of the beeping and the machines and the intubation and the nurses doing rounds, things like that. And it's like, what has to be done? So it would have been very happy to have some ASL on hand. But I do love terrible puns. I do really love terrible puns. I'm sorry. So, yeah. No, and the painkillers and stuff like that. I have the celiac thing and possibly EDS. So I run through painkillers like crazy, and I also have the body being allergic to everything thing. So having the vasoconstrictors in it, I made the post about the dentist, where they've got the epinephrine in the lidocaine, and that doesn't work for me. So, yeah, the thing that like is possibly with the EDS is the fact that I can just do that with absolutely no pressure whatsoever. Like that kind of makes me think so. But also the fact that I can dislocate both my hip and my shoulder at will. I can't really dislocate my hip at will. It just dislocates without my permission all the time. But then it pops right back in, so it hardly counts. Yeah. Yeah. Just everybody on Tumblr has a lot of flexibility with everything, including their opinions and joints. So, yeah. I dislocated my hip on purpose? So, that's a win some lose some sort of situation if your arthritis has stabilized my joints. My arthritis has basically done spinal fusion to me. My vertebral arthritis. So those vertebrae don't really move anymore. So, but yeah, the shoulder I dislocate on purpose. The shoulder is That's how my grandmother did her straitjacket escape stuff. We had the same dislocating shoulder. Yeah, so there are a lot of overlaps with things, and the I'm. Do you want to see the intentional shoulder dislocation? I probably shouldn't do it. I probably should do it. So I can also intentionally dislocate my jaw, but that's a much worse idea. So um, yeah, especially given the amount of TMJ and like tension headaches I've been having recently. So yeah, it's the dislocating the jaw thing is another thing that's like have a good time at work. Take care. Thank you for hopping on and hanging out as long as we were talking about nonsense after the Tumblr thing. Bye. um, um, yeah, I try. So the shoulder thing I used to do a lot more as a party trick. The jaw thing is one of the things where it's like I do miss my old dentist because I was able to ask him like, hey, can we take breaks every 10 minutes so that I don't have to dislocate my jaw, or can we do this, that, or the other thing? And he was very nice and he was very gentle. And one of the best features I've ever had in a dentist was he had tiny, tiny hands. He had such little teeny tiny hands. And like there are some sandwiches I can't eat because my jaw will dislocate because it's just if it just opens wide enough, it'll slide out. And if I do it quickly enough to get it back in, it's like, well, it's not going to get locked that way. But like if I'm in the middle of a root canal and I'm not able to take a break or anything like that, then it can get stuck that way. And then it really fucking hurts. So, yeah, I loved my tiny handed dentist. And every dentist I've had since then, because it's also great to have medical professionals who like really get you. Because one of my problems at the time was that I was fucking broke and I have bad teeth. And so I didn't have dental insurance, but I like needed tooth shit done because I have bad teeth. So he like let me work out a payment plan for like the root canals and crowns that I was doing. And it was like, it's $100 a month or whatever, but I was able to fucking pay for my shit, which was good. But also, I asked him when I was getting the crowns and everything. He's like, okay, cool. So we'll do the porcelain color matching. I'm like, will the metal crowns last longer? And he's like, yes, usually. But some of these are far enough forward in your smile that I'm not sure I would want to do them. They're a little further forward than I would typically want to put those because that's not common for Americans. And I was like, can I have metal crowns? Because it's going to last longer because I'm going to continue to have to pay for these. And he's like, okay. And every dentist I've seen since has been like, oh my God, your gold crowns are beautiful. That's beautiful work. Who did that? And it's like, great, fantastic. I love my pirate crowns. This is wonderful. And they've been lovely. So, yeah, you should definitely make a dentist appointment. Teeth having a problem is bad. Yeah, he was a wonderful dentist. He was great. He retired. He moved to Arizona and retired, and I'm still sad about it. So, and then I was seeing a dentist who was okay. The one who was like, hey, do you want to try this other thing with the big scary gun? And oh, cool, we've identified the thing that works for you. But then when my company got acquired, we switched dental insurance providers, and so she's not covered anymore. So I have to find a different dentist, and I've been putting it off. So I also need to see the dentist. We should all okay. This is a Wednesday night do something stream that turned into not doing anything except for, our Tumblr struggle session. We should all agree that at some point this week, we will do research into how to get to the dentist. I should see a dentist. You all should see a dentist. I should force Large Bastard to see a dentist. Okay. Heart transplant and everything aside, that man is almost 50 and he's never had a fucking cavity. And I don't understand it. I had my first root canal when I was 13. And I had my wisdom teeth out when I was 15, and like he's never had a fucking cavity, and I'm like, how? Fuck you. This is you're 7 feet tall and you've got good teeth and this, that, and the other thing. It's just like never had a cavity either. I'm so jealous. But yes, we should all go see dentists. we should all make sure that our dental health is in good shape. So excellent. I'm glad your next 6-month appointment is in May. Yeah. How's yeah, because the last time I had talked to you about the truck, it was also struggling. Is it the same sort of issues like the braking, or Yeah, I've had extremely bad luck with dentists. Like in addition to the dentist who was wonderful, I've had extremely bad luck with a lot of dentists. So like, when you're 13 years old, you're not like fully grown adult size. So when they're trying to like measure your tooth for the crown, like they use the fully grown adult size mouth measurement thing because that's what they have to do it with. And you end up kind of choking on the stuff that's like sliding down your throat as they're like measuring it. Like having other dentists who were like, "Oh, you've used up your deductible and your payments for a year, so do you want me to just do these fillings with no Novocaine?" 16-year-old who's not going to ask your mom. So, um, Oil pump is that one is a bit of a pain in the butt. If you want, hit me up on Tumblr and I can see if I can get some either reference for it or help you find somebody local who's reliable and relatively inexpensive. So yeah, I'm glad that you organized your vitamin caddy to get to your vitamins easier, and I'm sorry about the plastic teeth. It is rough out there with the plastic teeth. But yeah, it's it can definitely feel overwhelming. Also, like open, I do the computer stuff on Saturdays, but if you have questions related to something that that I know something about, so car maintenance or repair or sewing or dog training or things like that, those are welcome questions on the Saturday streams as well. Or if you want to, prime me with a question on Wednesday and we'll get to it on Saturday or vice versa. Because now I'm going to be looking up how to replace the oil pump in a 94 F-150 just cause. And even if you're not here on Saturday, it's something I'm going to be looking up. So I'll let you know. But yeah, it's the better than with the plastic ones than the one you were born with. I can definitely be sympathetic to that too. So yeah. Yeah, the ability to eat and chew is pretty fucking important, and if if the teeth you're born with can't do it, like you gotta you gotta get that handled. So but yeah, well, so I was also, of course I am, yes, of course I am, um, 250, 250, 94. Again, talking about Hasan Piker's stream, he brought up a concept that people were yelling at him about because they were saying that it was like normalizing racism, and it was specifically a sociological concept that had to do with like the term that he was using was permissible racism, and it's discussing the fact that like there are certain kinds of racism that are permissible within society, and there are certain kinds of racism that are impermissible within society, and pointing out the racism that is considered permissible by society is not normalizing that, it's actually pointing out that it has been normalized. So that was kind of what was going back and forth, but I was getting really annoyed with the chat for like not understanding that. Yeah. So, well, Hasan Piker is a Twitch streamer, an exceptionally popular Twitch streamer, who is very left-wing, and it's interesting because he's very left-wing, but he's not very PC. And that, I think, is what gets him in trouble. So he can get into arguments with people, and he doesn't comport himself the way that a lot of polite leftists would. And he's also like, his uncle is Cenk Uygur from the Young Turks. He had a show on the Young Turks for a while before he like took off and did his own streaming thing. The other thing about it is he's very fucking attractive. He's like a very pretty man. And so he like travels a lot in terms of like how like clips of him spread and everything like that. So it's like, yeah, he's a pretty man who has very loud opinions that kind of don't match with what a lot of people would expect. There was a New York Times article about him that like was initially titled like a leftist mind in a MAGA body or something like that. That was then later, the title was changed to, a leftist mind in a body made for the manosphere. Like, he's a buff dude who like does sports and things like that, and is very, very bro-y, and talks about like the use of like TRT instead of steroids as you age and everything like that, and like talks about it as TRT, talks about it as gender confirmation. So the deal is like, he's this total bro dude who is like a vocal socialist, and he became exceptionally controversial after October 7th because he's extremely vocally pro-Palestinian, and it led to a lot of fights on the internet. But anyway, yeah, that's me rambling about. I listen to him a lot. Sorry. But yeah, he tends to get clipped out of context a lot, and because he doesn't temper himself, sometimes like he got accused of being racist a long time back during COVID, for criticizing Nicki Minaj for supporting like white supremacist ideology, and then being a little insensitive in the way that he had worded the tweet about that. And it's like, well, he seems pretty vindicated now for criticizing Nicki Minaj in 2020 about her support of white supremacy. But yeah, he's also been accused of being transphobic. He's not transphobic, but he sometimes says things that are like, the deal is, he's kind of the reason that I started doing this. Like, the deal is that like, he just doesn't say things in the social justice approved way, and so it's really easy to attack him. But the reason he doesn't say things in the social justice approved way is because he's trying to attract an audience of video gamers. So, and he's really good at de-radicalizing them, actually. So that makes, yeah. Anyway, sorry. And if you have arguments about that with me, that's perfectly fine. Sorry, Wait, why would you need to stab him for talking about the manosphere? And also, that wasn't him. That was the New York Times headline. He did not. Well, I mean, he does talk about the manosphere, but like, very critically. Or is it somebody from Avenue Q who needs to talk about the manosphere differently? I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. Hasan Piker is let's go to YouTube. I'm not gonna play a video, but I'm gonna see what I can find that is something that I would consider a good introduction. Also, there's a thing where people yell at him for shocking his dog. He didn't shock his fucking dog. There's a if you search him, one of the things that will come up is, he used a shock collar on his dog and yelled at her and everything. And it's like, the dog has been on stream for 3 fucking years. Like, everybody has seen the dog since she was a fucking puppy. He didn't shock his fucking dog. Oh, and he's going to be on the Cuba flotilla this week. So he's going to do humanitarian aid in Cuba, delivering solar panels and talking to people and trying to basically present, Cubans as humans. But yeah, still trying to find a good. I don't know. He's on stream 8 hours a day, so there are like a million fucking videos about him. Scratch a liberal and a fascist bleeds is a pretty good one. But yeah, he also ends up like, look, he's with Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson. He was at the Vanity Fair Oscar party last week. Kat Abugazala, who just lost the race for the Illinois 9th Senate seat or congressional seat, came and did an interview with him on stream. This is the story: a progressive body and a mind made for the manosphere. But yeah, watch any video of him yelling about Trump losing the war. All of those are great. He has a ton of, like, he's very anti-war. He's, he talks about a lot of annoying fucking people. So I'll see if I can find a good video and link it, because there are some that are like fantastic, but I'm just not thinking of any off the top of my head right now. So, but there are some that are also like just very good introductions to like leftist concepts. So yeah, it's yeah, no, the being mad at Nicki Minaj absolutely makes sense. So someone should be doing the work of de-radicalizing these people, and it's not going to be. There's a. Let me see if I can actually find the clip from Brennan and Sam Reich. This is like there's a clip specifically of okay there because I know that Tumblr is a fan of. Sorry, you have now all witnessed the fact that I made it so that my computer can't pull up YouTube Shorts because otherwise I'll get stuck watching YouTube Shorts. I keep forgetting that I've done this when I'm attempting to show people Shorts, and I'm not going to turn it off because I need to not be able to look at YouTube Shorts on my computer. So, oh no. But yeah, I'll drop a link to. Oh God. No, it's done it to all of YouTube now. That's great. Fantastic. No notes. I am no longer allowed to look at YouTube. I had to do it. I'll see if I can also. Okay, that's another thing that I'll do is I will put the filters that I created on Ublock Origin for that, because what happened, and I kind of described this when I was talking about video games the other day, is I got off work and I had been listening to YouTube videos while I was like at work, and I like went to change the video that I was listening to while I finished stuff, and I clicked into Shorts for some reason, and then I didn't sleep that night and couldn't work the next day because I had watched like 14 hours of YouTube Shorts because I couldn't get myself to look away from them. Which is also why I shouldn't be on fucking TikTok. But that was when I had to set up those filters because I can't fucking do it. But I will see if I can find the link to the. I mean, obviously I can find the link. I'll unfuck my computer and I'll put a link up in the description of this VOD, but also on Tumblr. I'll go through and I'll make. When I'm editing these things, what I do is I go through and I watch the videos and edit and like make sure I'm breaking out like long moments of silence or things like that. And I collect all of the links that I discussed on stream and put them in the description of the video. And also I will probably grab a couple of those links and put them in a Tumblr reblog of this. But yeah, he's the clip that I was just attempting to show is Brennan talking about the fact that like he's amazed that Hasan isn't out there constantly screaming like, help, help, somebody help me. And Hasan's response is, I am, because there aren't a lot of people who are working in this specific de-radicalization space. And again, that's kind of part of why I started doing this is like, I feel like there are not a lot of people who are addressing the conspiracism and like lack of media literacy on the left in a serious way. And especially not on spaces like Tumblr where people are very forgiving and very cuddly. And I feel like we're not really addressing this with young people going forward. And I feel like it's something that I have enough experience with that I can probably talk about it in a helpful way and in a way that will be relatable to young people. So it's a big part of this project. It's just, yeah, let's try to make people not be radicalized to the right by the fucking New York Post. But yeah, I am not allowed to have a tick. I keep thinking about it because it's like, I'm sure I would be able to make clips and potentially like increase the spread of this project, but I probably just should not have a TikTok. So, but yeah, oh, they're both to the, okay, I didn't realize they were both to the edited vids page. Thank you for letting me know that. I do kind of like Red Note. I kind of like Billy Billy. So, but I think Billy Billy is more streaming, less short form. But uh, uh, Inari Edwards is one of the people who I'm mutuals with on Tumblr, and they post a lot of Red Note stuff because I believe they're working on learning Mandarin, and so they do a lot of translation things. So, yeah, it's the wall of content. Yeah, it's also just the opposite way that I consume content, where it's like, okay, look, I have no problem listening to an 8-hour stream. I have no problem putting a 4-hour YouTube video on repeat and just listening to it 7 or 8 times. I have no problem listening to Merzbow's Pulse Demon until everybody around me wants to scream. But yeah, you sit me down in front of short form content, and I'm just gonna go a little crazy. Large Bastard likes he likes YouTube Shorts, and I'm like, no, 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 no. And he also, the man's been shooting long enough that his hearing is not great, and especially now that he's creeping up on his 50s, his hearing is not great. And so sometimes I'm hearing the YouTube Shorts when he is down the hall. So,